Hey everyone, it's Jeannie here, and today I am so glad to be joined by the filmmaker behind the blockbuster hit I Can Only Imagine, but so many other incredible films, Andy Erwin or Andrew. I don't know, are we cool, Andy?
You call me Andy. We're friends. We're good.
One half of the brother duo, the Erwin brothers. You guys are awesome. You're making just content that is the salt of the earth right now, and we need it. Thank you so much for chatting with me.
I appreciate the time. You say all those nice things. I'll just sit here and listen for a while. I appreciate that. It's very generous. I appreciate that.
Well, you have a few new films on the horizon,
Right.
but let's start talking about Jesus music. It's
Yeah.
coming right down the pipeline, and I saw the film. I'm a singer, so
Awesome.
I loved it. Yeah, I did this whole article about new films coming out this year,
Mhm.
and then someone interviewed me. Which one are you most excited about? And it was actually Jesus music, and I hadn't
Awesome.
seen it, and then I saw it, and it was just, it's so good. So let's start there. What made you want to kind of go down the journey of highlighting, music, Christian music?
Yeah, Jeannie, I think the thing that similar to you is just I have a deep appreciation for this music, particularly because it's really what shaped mine and John's career. I was a struggling filmmaker from Birmingham, Alabama, trying to make my break. And John and I had gone over and over again to Nashville to try to kind of break into music videos and that type of thing. And we got so many doors, shut in our face, a lot of rejection, and nobody would take a chance on these guys from Birmingham. And Michael W. Smith was the first one and said, I got a little video if you want to try to direct it. And we
Wow.
did that video for a small song called How to Say Goodbye. And that really launched our whole career. And then shortly after that, we got to do a music video for Amy Grant. And it
Wow.
really was kind of what shaped what we got to do. And then that led to, after years of doing music videos for everybody from, Nicole C. Mullen to Skillet, we then stepped into, features. And then our breakout hit was I Can Only Imagine. And, that was, so we have a tremendous debt that we owe these artists, and we love the music. And
Wow.
so kind of the way the film came about is, COVID had shut us down. I mean, we were in the middle of a release for I Still Believe, and opening weekend was when all the theaters closed. And then,
I know.
so we were trying to figure out, like, what does God want us to tell now? What story can we tell now that we can't tell any other time? And during that creative kind of brainstorm session, one of the guys that produces with us, Josh Walsh, said, nobody's ever taken a look at the origin of Christian contemporary music. And, for the first time in history, all these artists are off the road at the same time. And so we just reached out to Amy and Smitty and said, is this interesting? And they said, not only is it interesting, but we would produce that with you guys. And
Wow.
so when they stepped on, it was a month before Amy's open heart surgery. Many people knew that was about to happen. And she said, I want to do the interview before I go into surgery. And so we actually set
Wow.
up outside her home and filmed through the window of her house to do her interview to kind of keep her safe from all the COVID stuff.
Wow.
And she just gave one of the most raw and candid interviews I'd heard a Christian artist give. And then that just kind of, after that happened, like the floodgates opened and everybody wanted to be on board. So it was a cool story to tell.
It's incredible. I mean, you guys went from all the doors being shut initially to having everyone who's, a huge artist in Christian music a part of this film. I didn't grow up a Christian and
Mhm.
I didn't even know worship music existed till,
Yep.
way later, or any type of Christian music. So it was so fascinating to me how you guys went through the eras of music and just how, these different artists were a part of it. Was there a particular era that you kind of, when while filming it, you were just like, wow, this is like really cool?
Yeah, it was, and it is really cool to kind of trace back the history. I think because all of us kind of come into this music in a way like with the music that appealed to us, whether that's, more modern contemporary music or, kind of crossover mainstream stuff like Lauren Daigle or, the worship music or, whatever. for me, it was very much DC Talk. Uh, I remember,
Wow.
Columbia House used to have that program where you like get there, 11 cassette tapes for a penny or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I remember opening that box, and the first tape in that box was Jesus Freak by DC Talk. And when I heard that music, I was in college and I just said, what is this? I've never heard anything like this. And at that point I was a fan, and I remember being at concerts and all that type of stuff. And so to kind of be able to sit in the room with Toby Mac and have him explain how that all came about in the room where they made Jesus Freak in the the record of
Wow.
the album was like, I, as a fan, I just kept pinching myself. It's like, I can't believe we get to do this. And
Yes.
so for each person there's going to be their moment, whether it's Kirk Franklin, or back to like the hair metal days with Striper, or
Right.
it's just everybody has their era, but really the common DNA is these trailblazers that forged a path of music that didn't exist before the early 70s. And that they found their way to kind of have their voice heard, and that's universally relatable, no matter
Yeah.
what your style is.
So true. I got to speak to Michael Tate about the film, and I loved how candid the artists were. And I got to be honest, I'm a New Yorker. I
I
didn't
like New
grow up
York.
in the church. Yeah,
Yeah.
I grew up in the church. So for me, like we're always like, give me that raw
Yeah.
stuff. And being in the Christian industry and doing what I do, when you do interviews, sometimes you don't always get that. I always try to
Right.
bring that out of people. But I feel like you guys did a masterful work
Oh, thank you.
at providing a safe place for these artists to be honest, where they can say, DC Talk was held together with duct tape and Jesus or something. You know what I mean? Like, talk about that. Just kind of providing a safe place. This is the first
Yeah.
time I heard a lot of these artists be this open.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, part of it's timing, because I think everybody was really reflective because of COVID. But the other thing we try to say, that we went along the way is, I just said, I'm not interested in the scandal. I am interested in the struggle. And
Mm,
the struggle's
so good.
it's a human condition. Everybody makes mistakes. I'm not interested in the scandal, but the struggle I am. And so, it was, like Amy Grant, it really started with her interview, and I'm interviewing her, and Amy's one of my dearest friends. Uh, and I'm interviewing her, and we got to the part where I just asked her. I said, you know, um, about a particular album, about why it was so personal to her, and she said, "Well, I was recording it, and I was, going through a lot at home. My life was in shambles." And then she stopped and she looked at me. She's like, "Andy, I don't want to talk about it." She's like, "But I poured it on into that album, and it was special." And so I said, "Amy, I'm not interested in the details of what was going on. I
Yeah.
am interested in what you felt." And she said,
Right.
"Okay, I'll give you this." And she said, "I've always sketched cabins, and cabins was kind of my thing. Like anytime I had a spare time, I would sketch like a log cabin." And she said, I sketched this one cabin this day, and it was in the woods, and it was all overgrown, and you couldn't see the path, and it was kind of lost in the woods." And she said, "I guess that represented me, and somehow I lost myself in all this." And you get to a
Yeah.
point where you've lied to yourself and others, and you kind of figure, who am I? And she said, "I flipped that over, and on the back of it, I wrote, I'm no longer qualified to be on the stage." And she said, "I went
Wow.
into my manager's office and I put it on his desk and said, I can't sing anymore." And he said, "Let me ask you, Amy, is what you're singing about that's special? Is it you, or is it something bigger than you? Because if it's bigger than you, then go write about it." And she said, "I went and wrote about it, and that's what inspired that album." And so it was really cool for each of these. Michael Tate, when I interviewed him, he came up to me afterwards and he kind of chastised me. He's like, "You broke my 20-minute interview rule, bro." He's like, "I only did 20-minute interviews." I was like, "Well, Tate, bro, those first 20 minutes have been rehearsed for 20 years. I'm not interested in it." I said, I
Mm.
said, "The other 2.5 hours was what was interesting." And he's like, "You got me,
Ooh.
bro." And then he watched the doc and he broke down in tears. It's like, that's my life. It's incredible. And so, for each of these artists to kind of be real and be human, for me as a filmmaker, was awesome. It was really
Yeah.
exciting.
It's gold. Like seriously, I'm excited for people to watch it. There was an interesting part where you guys talk about not every church was even open to contemporary Christian music.
Yeah.
And then like me coming from the world, to me, I'm just like, why? Like I don't get
Yeah.
it. But as you guys went through the history of just music and how music was embraced in the church, and it was Billy Graham who embraced
No,
it.
who would have
I'm
guessed?
like, Billy Graham is like the one of the most incredible
Yep.
trailblazers in media, like
Yep.
with movies and
Yep.
music. Talk a little bit about that. Like Billy Graham was the one who embraced it, and
Yeah.
then now we have what we have.
Yeah. It was exciting to figure that out, because as we explored it, a lot of times the church is just afraid of anything's new. It's not necessarily rooted in anything but just kind of fear of new. And there
Yeah,
were different pastors along the way that really railed on it. And we go into some of those storylines, like with Striper, of some of the just the personal
yeah, that was
betrayals
heartbreaking.
that they felt, and it was really heartbreaking. But then on the other side, to kind of discover that Billy Graham, not once but twice, stood out on a limb and said, "No, this music has value." In 1972, at the what was the Christian Woodstock at Explo 72, when a lot of other pastors were kind of picketing and saying, "No, this music's bad," he invited this eclectic stage of artists to this massive concert. 200,000 people show up to it. Some estimate maybe even more than that. And it was Johnny Cash and Chris Christopherson and Andre Crouch and Larry Norman and Love Song. It was just Rita Coolidge. It was an amazing kind of stage of these eclectic artists that he brought all together, put on a stage, and put his blessing and said, "This music has value. It's good." And then in the early '90s, when kind of DC Talk was on board, he did it all over again, and he said,
Yeah,
he put them all on stage and said, "We're going to have a rock concert." And when Billy put a stamp of approval on it, a lot of Christian leaders said, "Okay, if Billy says it's good, it's good." And so
wow.
it was really cool to see how he, behind the scenes, was very influential.
A big part of the film too pointed to the
Uh,
racial.
Jeannie, real quick, if we can pause for a second, I'm going to hook up the power supply to my laptop. It's about to die.
Okay,
I don't want
perfect.
to
Oh
die.
yeah,
Hold on.
sure.
We've been going nonstop with interviews, and so
Mm.
I haven't been able to stop to plug it in. All right,
Oh my god.
there we go.
Hmm.
All right,
Okay,
good to go. All
we
right,
good?
yeah, good.
Okay. A big part of the film too, you guys address the kind of racial divide that there is in Christian
Yeah,
music, which, so, again, it's like coming from the outside in and then discovering music and then realizing that there is, gospel music is more the Black gospel,
yep,
Christian contemporary music more is like the white. I was joking with Michael Tate and
yeah.
he said, I'm the honorary Negro, his own words. I said, "Oh my
That's a
gosh,
very
you are
Tate
too
thing.
much."
I love it.
But it was sad to see, but it's
Yeah,
a reality that we do have.
right.
Can you kind of talk about exploring that in the film, just the
Yeah,
racial divide in the genres?
yeah. That was really important to John and me. As we got into it, I really wanted the struggle to be in the artist's own words, and I didn't want to editorialize it. I wanted it to be very authentic to their experience, and so
Yeah.
I wanted that transparency, that honesty, kind of the authenticity. And so it really started with Kirk Franklin. When we sat down with Kirk, and Kirk's a dear friend, and anytime with any of my films, anything touches on anything racial, he's always my first call of like, help me understand, how this connects with your world. And so I think a big part of healing, especially with the climate of the past couple of years, that a lot of things that have started to be talked about that have needed to be talked about for a while, is just having a healthy dialogue, a mutual respect. And so with Kirk, I just said, a lot of people have edited your words and haven't let you have the platform to say these things.
Right.
So for us, I want you to have editorial control of how we present this topic. And so we had a really honest, frank conversation where I just said, you've been a bridge between not just the gospel world and contemporary, but also between kind of mainstream hip hop and the church.
Yeah.
And so being a bridge, tell me about what's that tension on the bridge. And he just kind of walked through it and was very honest about kind of that struggle, dating back to, like, we had Andre Crouch, and Andre Crouch in the 70s was the first Kirk Franklin. And he said, if,
Yeah.
if I'm a bridge, that man was a freaking city. Um,
Wow.
but he talked about the tension on the bridge and that struggle of, like, you know, uh, not having a united church. And then we kind of explored that topic with Tate and Mandisa and Lecrae and many others that
Yeah.
allowed it. And so I think I'm really proud of how it's presented in a way that I hope has the potential for catharsis and for healing, in a way that's not shaming at all, but it's just really
Mm.
people really explaining their reality in a way
Mhm.
that, as Christians from kind of the more traditional white church, it may be opportunity for us to listen and learn. And so one of the treats for me was when it was done, I flew back to Dallas and I sat down with Kirk and I showed him the sections and just to see how he felt. And I turned and he had tears in his eyes. He couldn't speak. And
Wow.
so, I felt like, to honor him, cause he's the real deal. And
Yeah.
it was really, really cool.
Yeah, and it wasn't done in an agenda driven way or
No,
anything. Like, you know how everything has an agenda now.
yeah,
It wasn't. It was just it was really it was sobering. It was great. I'll ask you this, and then if you want to touch on anything else from, I know you have a lot of movies and down the pipeline, but what was kind of the common theme that you learned from all of these creatives while sitting with them? What was one of the things that you were like, wow, they all kind of have this one thing?
yeah. I think the one thing really is just the spirit of a trailblazer. The thing that's exciting for me is it's easy to categorize anything Christian, from an outside perspective, as churchy, cheesy, whatever else labels that we get labeled. But when you look at it from an honest face value, especially when it comes to music, uh, I think there's something universally relatable, and kind of rebellious and romantic in a way for the spirit of a trailblazer. Somebody that
Yeah.
says, there's nothing else out there that looks like me. And I'm going to step out into this world and say, I'm going to create something that resonates with who I am. And
Mm.
I think that's universally relatable. And so to see that spirit of a trailblazer and that rebel. And the cool thing is to sit down with these artists when we got finished and have them watch the doc and all of a sudden compare their story with all these other stories. And they're like, holy cow, I thought I was the only one. And they
Right.
recognize the trailblazer that is in a Larry Norman, or is in a Amy Grant, or is in a Kirk Franklin, or now is in a Lauren Daigle or a For King and Country or Lecrae. I think that's the thing that transcends 5 decades of music,
Mm.
and so it was really cool to find that kind of that DNA that exists in each one of them, that I think is something to be applauded.
Yeah, and I think that's why I loved it so much because it resonated with the rebel in me, the
I,
trailblazer in
I
me.
agree. I agree. I
I
love it.
love it. So, can you talk about anything else that you guys got coming? I know there's American Underdog, and
Yeah.
that you got a bunch of stuff. So,
Yeah.
if you want to share or touch, or we can
Yeah.
always re.
Yeah. It's been a it kind of went from the world being put on hold to all of a sudden it getting put in triple time. And I'm sure you can
Wow.
relate. It's been nonstop
Yeah.
lately, but it's a good thing. God is opening doors in film that I never thought was possible, that John and I and Kevin, our producing partner, have only dreamed of. And so not only do we have the Jesus music coming out October 1st, but we have a football movie called American Underdog. It's the story of Kurt Warner, that a lot of people know from his supermarket to Super Bowl kind of ascent. But it's really just this story of a man fighting for his family with his wife. He married a single mom, Brenda, and she had 2 kids, one of which was special needs, who's blind. And he fell in love with his family, and it was those people that put the heart of the champion in him. And so that story turned out fantastic, an incredible cast. Lionsgate really supported it. So
Yeah.
Zachary Levi from the Shazam movies is playing Kurt, and then we have Anna Paquin plays Brenda, and then Dennis Quaid plays Dick Vermeil. And so incredible cast. And it turned out, we were so excited about how it turned out, so much so that Lionsgate gave us a Christmas Day release, which has never happened for anything involving faith. So it's incredible. So that's coming along soon. Um, Trailers coming out really soon. So I'm really excited about that. And then we have another film called The Unbreakable Boy that comes out in March that our good friend John Gunn, that directed Case for Christ, he directed, and it was fantastic story, feel good story, very similar to a movie like Wonder, about this family that just learns so much from their special needs son that has a rare condition that makes his bones brittle, and also has autism. And so it was really incredible to do that story. It's a feel good movie. Audiences have loved the test screenings of that as well. So really excited about what the future looks like with Lionsgate and Kingdom. So we just want to keep doing products that really connect with the family, really connect with faith. And it's been exciting to see the doors that God's opening.